Let's hear from Angus Taylor.
Commitment to the $275 reduction in electricity prices. We've seen the Prime Minister walk away from cheaper mortgages that he committed before the last election. And today we've seen the Prime Minister and the Treasurer walking away from their commitment to not add taxes to superannuation. Now, this was an unambiguous commitment from the Prime Minister. He said he wouldn't raise taxes on Australian super. At the end of the day, Australian super is Australians' money. That must be the starting point here. And it is clear that Labor is prepared to break a promise to charge more tax. Now, we've also seen today, released by the Labor Party, by the Prime Minister and the Treasurer, a report laying out more than $150 billion of additional taxes that they may well choose to impose on the Australian people. They refuse to rule out imposing capital gains tax on Australians' homes. They refuse to rule out getting rid of negative gearing. And we know they're coming after franking credits. Indeed, they've introduced broad-ranging legislation to come after franking credits into the parliament already. This is a Labor Party that says one thing before an election and does something very different afterwards. We also know from the Treasurer that he is keen to get rid of the stage 3 tax cuts that are crucial to prevent inflation raising the average tax for a large proportion of Australians. Now, there's a great deal of detail that hasn't been laid out about what's been proposed today. We don't know how defined benefits are going to be treated under this. We don't know how indivisible assets are going to be treated under what is being proposed by Labor. Unlisted assets, how they are going to illiquid assets, how they're going to be treated under what is proposed by Labor. It's clear that this has been rushed, but what is also clear is that when the Labor Party runs out of money, it comes after yours. And we're going to see, I'm confident, a lot more of this from the Labor Party. They're not talking about managing their spending and managing their budget. They're talking about raising taxes. Australians will pay for a Labor Party that added over $114 billion at the last budget in October. A Labor Party that has committed an extra $45 billion of off-budget spending that will have to be paid for by Australians. This is a Labor Party that wants to spend your money and is going to have to tax all Australians in order to be able to do that. Very happy to take any questions.
Shadow Treasurer, is it reasonable for Australians to have tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars in super and pay just 15% in tax on their earnings?
It is reasonable for Australians to expect the government to keep its cast iron election promises. Now, we've seen a range of promises being broken by the Labor Party, and we expect the Labor Party to keep its promises. We're not going to be party to a Labor Party that raises taxes, having committed that it wouldn't do it. We went to an election in 2019 which was primarily about raising taxes. The Labor Party lost that election very clearly. So they avoided making those commitments at this election. Having now got into government, they've decided to move the goalposts. They've decided to move the goalposts. And frankly, that's not good enough, and we're not going to be part of it.
Are you confident a future coalition government could convince the Parliament to repeal these changes, should it choose to do so?
Well, I tell you what I'm very confident of is that Australians don't want to see election promises broken. Australians don't want to see election promises broken, and they don't want to see a government that can't manage its own spending and so has to come after Australians with higher taxes. Now, $45 billion of extra sneaky spending we've seen Labor passing through in just the last couple of months that we've opposed. And we've opposed it because right now is the wrong time to be imposing extra tax on Australians. Australians are out there trying to make ends meet, rising interest rates, sharply rising interest rates. We know there's more to come. We've been told that by the Reserve Bank. Australians are facing very high levels of inflation, 7.8% over the last year. They're simply trying to make ends meet. And now they've got a government that has no longer a commitment to budget balance, has given up on the commitment to budget balance, added over $114 billion of spending in the October budget, has added $45 billion of off-budget spending in the last couple of months since the budget. And so, of course, they want to tax Australians more. We simply won't be party to that.
So would the coalition choose to repeal this if elected?
Well, we're not going to be party to Labor breaking an election promise, which was very clear. and the Prime Minister made it unambiguous. And you know, we simply won't work with Labor to break their election promises. I mean, there's a lot of election promises they'd like to break. We know they'd like to get rid of the stage 3 tax cuts. Meanwhile, Australians are going to be facing rising average income rates because of inflation as their incomes go up into higher thresholds in the coming years. Labor wants that to be their tax take. They want to be able to spend that money. We're simply not going to be party to it.
The government is trying to address the structural deficit. Where do you suggest it should turn to find savings or add revenue?
Well, we've already voted against an extra $45 billion of spending that Labor wants to make. I mean, we have voted with our feet in the Parliament by saying to the Australian people, now is not the right time to be spending that money. Now is the time for government to be making ends meet, just as households and businesses are having to make ends meet in a very tough environment where they've seen rising prices for goods and services. If Australians can work hard to make ends meet, so too can the government without raising taxes. Well, very good. Thank you very much.